All right, hi friends, welcome. So today's activity will be our Qlab practice project, and you will come into your modules in our class and you'll pull down a copy of the Qlab project assignment sheet. I'm also going to hand you a paper one, and then you'll want to download this Qlab project audio files.zip. This will be the resource files so that you don't have to go looking for sounds in order to do this part of the work. So this is really about practicing our Qlab programming. So I'm going to go ahead and download those things by I am in you, and I've placed them in here. The audio files do download as a zip archive, so we can double click on that once it's downloaded and it will open up. And you'll notice when you unzip them, they look much like any pile of random MP3s. They have ridiculous naming conventions, all kinds of different stuff, right? The first thing we're going to do is go through this stack of things, and we're going to organize the file names to clean up what they're supposed to be about so that we're easier when we get to programming. So when I look at our programming practice project sheet, what I'm seeing is, there it is. Okay, looking at our Qlab practice project programming sheet. Wow, so many P's. I can sort of scroll down and figure out the order that these various pieces are going to go in, and then I'm going to rename these to match the order that they're going to happen in our project, right? So up here is sort of a description of what is happening in this imaginary pretend play, and then down here is an actual cue sheet with cue numbers and then content that lives in those cues. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start by pulling this transition music, and for that I want to use, I think this is the one I had picked as the transition music. You can choose whichever songs you want for whatever stuff you want, right? So I'm going to just start this with the number 3. I'm going to write transition so that now the file name is actually giving me a cue about what it is that this piece is, what this piece of the puzzle will be later, right? So this has a whole bunch of different stuff to get to the word gunshot. And we're going to do a HotKey trigger for our gunshot. So we'll just call it G for gun, right? And I'll delete all of these other words and I'll make it the gunshot. So that kind of will organize itself where it belongs. You'll also notice as I rename things, they stack in the order that we want, and that's going to be helpful to us. The tea kettle sound, when does that happen? That's Q7. So we'll say Q7, tea kettle sound, right? The rain is coming in also in Q3, but we'll go ahead and call it 4 since it can come in after that. So we're just going to call this 4, rain. This looks like a song. Morning sounds. That's different. This is going to be like birds chirping and stuff like that. Morning sounds. That'll be 5 because it's going to come in here at Q5. So we're going to call this 5 morning sounds, and I'm going to delete the rest of that text. And then I think what I got left are a bunch of random songs. Yeah, so let's just clean up some of the extra words. And then I'm going to call these 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. Those are going to be my pre-show songs. You do what you want. If you wanted to have your other songs, you could. I don't really care. Because you could be the designer. I just need to see the activity, right? So I'm naming these. And then maybe I'll just use the last 2. I'll use this last one. I'll put this in for intermission and the other one in for intermission. And intermission starts at 9. So let's call that one 9. And see, all kinds of weird stuff. You know what? That's fine. And then we'll make this one also 9. So those are intermission. Okay. All right. So I've organized my random audio files now, and they're all sort of set up so that they sort in the order that I'm going to need them, and I'll have them now. It's a little bit easier for me to find what I'm looking for. That's a super important part of being a Qlab programmer, right? It's cleaning up your file names so that you know what's going on. So there's that grouping. And my next step is going to be to open Qlab. So now that we've sort of gotten our files and we know kind of where our project is, we're going to open Qlab. I'm not sure if it's version 5.4.11 on your computer, but it should be a Qlab 5 edition that should be available to you. Okay. You're going to create a new workspace from the built-in blank workspace. So you're just going to click there. It's going to create this new workspace. The first thing we do, always ever, is save our file. So we're going to save this file into this folder, right? This Qlab practice project folder. One moment, let me figure out where the heck I put that. Is it just on my desktop with everything else I own? Yes, it is. Okay, great. So file, let's save this. I'm going to look for it on my desktop, and I'm going to put it into the same folder with the rest of my business. We're going to call this Pretend Play Practice. So many P's. Project. What? Great. Okay. All right, now here I am, Qlab. We've all met Qlab before, right? So one of the first things I'm going to do is just twirl open this little page on the side, this little tab here. That is going to show my active cues and my cue list, which you're not going to need super right away, but you're going to need eventually, okay? The other pieces, right, that you would have are your files would live in here, your cues are going to live in here, and then all of your information about your cues is below. And you've, I'm sure, seen this before. This should not be the first time you're seeing Qlab, okay? There are a couple of different ways you can bring files in. Usually I just drag and drop them from Finder. So I'm going to go find that folder I had, which is the last thing, and it's not showing up at all. Get my Finder open. I don't mean Chrome, I need Finder. All right, let's minimize a bunch of garbage that is not relevant at the moment, and we'll go find my Finder window. Yeah, so hiding from me. Finder. Finding Finder. There it is. Okay, so now go back to that folder I'm in, Qlab Practice Project. Great. And I can just start bringing files over into this project. All right. So the first three, we'll just start there. Those are going to be my pre-show music. So I'm going to just bring these three in, drag and drop, right? There they are. 3 little cues. They're automatically numbering. That's not something I actually want Qlab to be doing, because if it is automatically numbering, then the cue numbers, because each cue, each piece of Qlab here, each cue in Qlab is being given an individual number. But as you read through this project, you're going to see that there are multiple things happening in a lot of these cues. And so you actually don't want Qlab automatically numbering stuff, because it's just going to be more numbering over here that you need to delete. So one of the things we should change in our setup of Qlab is we should turn off that auto numbering thing. So you'll see down here in the corner, it's like a sunshine or a gear. And if you pull that open, then you'll get this window here. And one of the choices in that window is this auto number cues, right? We are going to unclick that auto numbering of cues, okay? And that will help us be in the place we want to be, right? So we're going to say done. Okay, great. So I have these 3 songs that are my pre-show. I'm bringing them in. They already have numbers. I don't want numbers. I'm going to come in and delete the numbers. So if I double click on them, it lets me, like a little text box, delete them, because these are all going to be the pre-show, right? If I select all 3 of these at the same time, I can hit this button here, which says group when I hover over it, and it will create a group that those live inside, right? This group we're going to call pre-show. And we're going to give this a cue number, because at the beginning, before the people come in, you're going to turn on the pre-show, okay? Here is the thing. Right now, if I hit play, if I hit the space bar to go, all of these songs are now playing at the same time on top of each other like a psychopath, right? There's like 3 different sets of things all happening at once. That is not what we want, right? You can see that happening over here in active cues. It'll tell you what songs are playing, and all of them are playing right now. Okay, so we can hit escape, and that'll pull us out of the whole situation, or we can X out individual pieces, right? This is why I keep this panel open, because sometimes if I'm in the middle of a project or something, I don't want to turn off all the sounds. I just want to turn off the one thing that is being the problem, and leave the rest of the cue running in the background. So this active cues panel is how you're going to do that. We're still in this problem though, right? Because we got these 3 songs all playing at the same time. The where that is changing, right? The way of this being set up to play everything at the same time is when you select Preshow, when you select the group that all of this stuff sits inside, you will see that there is a tab down here. The tabs are different, right? When I select here, I get these whole set of tabs. And when I select there, I get fewer tabs, and they are doing different things. So this is the information about how the group works. And if I select this one here, we have a set of options, okay? So we have timeline, which is using this timeline modality to set up cues. This is going to help you a ton if you're trying to build your layered sound projects, right? Because you're able to sort of see the visual waveforms and match things up and arrange all of your stuff in the timeline. And as you drag stuff in the timeline, it sets your pre-weights for you so that things start overlapping in the way that you would want them to. So that's super useful, but that's not what we need right now, right? What we need here, right? Playlist, okay? This is a new feature. Thank you, Qlab 5. Play one child cue. So we have the parent group, and then we have individual children cues inside. Play one child cue at a time sequentially and advance the playhead to the next cue or cue sequence after this group, okay? So what that's going to do, and it's got it here, right, is it's going to let you put all of your pre-show in as a little playlist, and it's going to turn on a little auto follow here at the end. So when this song ends, the next song starts, da 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 da, right? If you, and these are new features. I haven't even seen this before because I haven't been programming in Qlab 5 enough. So over here, I program video and it's different. But over here, you have things like auto shuffle. So if you wanted your playlist to play on shuffle, you totally could have that happen. You could also have it loop until stopped, which is kind of what we would want in a pre-show situation. For the purposes of this project, I don't think it's going to be necessary. But if you were in a pre-show situation, right, and you just wanted to like toss a playlist in there and just turn it on, you don't want to run out of songs in your pre-show. So the auto loop until stopped, I think, is useful. So we're just going to check that box because now there's a little loop button. And so now these 3 songs will just keep playing on a loop until someone stops the pre-show, which is what we would do when we started the play, okay? So that playlist mode is going to be really helpful for us here. There are other modes here that you can look at and that we might get into a little bit later. So there's the start first cue and enter. There's just the start first cue, or there's a random cue mode. So if we really wanted a random sound effect, not my life, not my circus. I like to know what's going to happen next. So those are all options. Playlist is the one we want for pre-show. Okay, so mode determines whether it's in playlist, and then playlist settings are over here in this tab. Okay, so that's our pre-show. We're all set up on that. Our next step is going to be that we're going to fade out the pre-show because they're going to do the curtain speech live. All right, so you have your playlist for your pre-show. The next thing we're going to do is grab a fade cue. So one of the ways that you can bring a fade cue in is you can just grab it and drag it into your workspace. And that's how I would do it. So here I have my fade cue. It's got a big X on it because it doesn't know what it's doing. And if you hover over that X, it'll tell you what's wrong. And it says, I'm missing a cue target. And that means it does not know what to fade, right? So we're going to have it fade the pre-show. And there are a couple of different ways to target a cue. You can in different ways add a target right here, right? What I'm going to do is pick up my pre-show. I'm going to pick it up with my mouse. What this is initially doing is rearranging it, right? So it's the blue dot and line. It's just trying to like reorder stuff. But if I hover over the target column, I'm going to get a white box like that. And then when I let go with my mouse, now pre-show is targeted here. So now this is like, I'm going to fade the pre-show, which would be great. We would like for that to happen. It still is having a problem. No parameters are set to fade. So we know what our target is now, but we don't know what we're doing, what kind of fade we're doing to it. I am going to come in here and give it a number. And then I need to come into levels, which is our volume situation, right? And what I want it to do is fade out, make it negative infinity. So now I'm fading it all the way out, and then I'm going to stop the target when it's done. So now it says fade and stop pre-show, right? So that we know that at the end of the fade, it's going to stop running that loop of forever music, right? So it's going to fade it out, and then it's going to turn off the loop, okay? So what that looks like in practice, now that I've set it all up, is I can press the space bar. My pre-show music starts playing. It's very quiet. That's okay. I mean, it would probably be louder if it were in my headphones, right? And what would continue? It would continue into the other songs, right? But we're not going to worry about that. And it has advanced the playhead, which is this white box, to my next cue, which is waiting for me to fade it out so that I can do my pre-show speech. So if I hit my space bar again, it's now going to fade it out, and it's going to stop all those cues playing, okay? So now they can do their live pre-show speech. That was the plan, right? So that is for the curtain speech. If I am setting this up for someone who doesn't really know what's going on, I might type in notes, curtain speech, right? Or I might even change the name of this cue to be curtain speech so that it's clear for whoever's playing back the show what this cue is doing, okay? So now we've faded out that pre-show. Great. So now we got number 3, which is a piece of transition music that starts and then the rain follows underneath it. Okay, so here we go. Let's get our timeline going in a second, right? So we need both the transition music and the rain. I'm just going to bring them both in here, and then we'll deal with them in a moment. Okay, so Q3 is to start the transition music, and then to bring the rain in after it. And I'm going to put both of these in here into this folder because they're both going to happen sequentially. I'm going to call this Q3, and then I'm going to call this transition right in the title. And what we're going to do next is pull down into our timeline. So we got rain for days down here in the bottom, right? And then we have this little piece of transition music. So I'm going to come in and adjust it because one of the requests was that we have this transition music and then we have rain fading up, okay? So I'm going to just adjust my rain so that it happens a little bit into my transition music. And this music, I don't know, this rain is so long that my timeline is super zoomed out. If I zoom in a little bit, I'm able to see kind of closer to normal amounts of seconds. I'm going to slide over here so that I can kind of see what I'm doing. So let's just let the very beginning of this piece of music start, and then this rain already has kind of a fade on it. So if let's do like 4 seconds, right? I can also come here and type 4 as the pre-wait. And now if I go back and look at my timeline, you can see what's going to happen, right? You can hit this button here to preview it. Rain is coming in. Got it? Great. So here we are. We're going to play our little transition music. Our rain is underneath it, okay? If you want to adjust levels of things, that's over here in levels. If you're like, that rain is a bit much. So maybe we want it to come down a little bit, you know? That's still pretty present, okay? So now my transition is happening. La la la, rain, 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 okay? The next thing, let me just X that out. The next thing on my list is going to be to fade out the transition music, right? This is all happening as a cue, so we assume that this transition music and this rain thing is covering some sort of a scene change or whatever, right? and then that music is going to fade out, and then the rain is going to fade down. It's not going to go out, but it's going to fade down, okay? So that is going to be our Q4. So I need a Q4, and it's going to do two things, so I'm going to go ahead and make it into a folder. I want two fades, right? I want a fade and stop of the transition music. So I'm going to grab my fade cue. I'm going to say, hey, you, transition music. I want you to fade out, and I want you to stop, okay? So we're fading and stopping that. And this is, I'm going to name it into scene 1, right? So fade and stop that transition music, right? And the rain, I want it to keep playing, so I don't want to stop it, but I do want to fade it down, because right now it's a bit much. So I'm going to bring another fade cue in, and then I'll go grab this rain, and I'll target that to this second fade cue. And then instead of, so I'm going to set levels from target, that's going to give me wherever its level is right now. And then I'm going to fade it down from there, okay? So minus 19, let's see how loud that is, okay? So we are gonna switch back on all of this stuff, right? So this is all happening. That rain is pretty quiet after that fade out happens. Okay, so I think we wanna bring it up a little. Is that too much? That might be too much to talk over. It's all very hard to tell, right? Because we're not in a real situation. So you would make that adjustment to set your level in that fade, okay? So the other thing I feel like I want, and again, this is defaulting to that timeline mode so I can kind of see what I'm doing. The other thing I feel like I want is I feel like I want the music fade to be a little bit longer. So I'm going to make that 5 seconds. Again, I can do that here, or I can just type in up here the fade time I want. So if I wanted this to be like 6 seconds fade, right? And then the rain, I want it to be even more subtle than that. So I want this to fade down in like 10 seconds to its lower level. Let's look back at our timeline. Yeah, and I want that to start, I want it to start fading like a little bit after. So I'm going to put a 2-second pre-wait on that fade onto the rain. Let's see what this all sounds like now. So I can X that out, or I can hit escape to dump everything out. Starting this, right? I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. The rain is now coming in. Oh, the scene is starting. Here we go. Right, and I'm doing this very subtle pull down of rain because they've started talking and I don't want to be disruptive. Okay, so that's into scene 1. So now I have transition and I have this rain underscoring that is continuing to play, right? And you can see it over here that this rain underscoring is continuing to play. All right, then what? She has a backup gunshot. Oh, we're going to make a hotkey trigger. That'll be fun. So I'm going to come over here to cue list on the side. I'm going to ask for a new list, and this is going to be hotkey cues. So sometimes there's a gun on stage that has like a planned partial load blank firing situation, but we need a backup because what if it doesn't work? The actual, prop is broken or whatever. We need a backup for that, and we're going to put that in here in this hotkey cues because you're not going to need it every night. You're going to need it sometimes. And we're going to come back over and grab for this gunshot.wave. There she is, right? So here's our little gunshot. We can preview that, see what it sounds like. Bang! Great. Okay. So that's our gunshot. And what we want to do is change its trigger over here. And it's so basics, right, is your where is the file located. Triggers is going to be whether it's just on the cue, right, or whether it has some other sort of special way of triggering. And one of the ways that you can have it trigger is using a hotkey. So I can say, if someone presses the G key on my keyboard, the gun will go off, right? So now this is all set up. So now even if I'm in my main cue list and I'm watching the scene, I hit G and the gunshot goes off, okay? So now I've done that. That was my hotkey trigger for the backup gunshot. All right, so number 5, transition music fades up, ambient rain fades out, and is replaced by morning sounds. Okay, so I need a new folder because we got, again, a couple different things going on. So I need some transition music to fade up. Let's go get another transition music song. Do I have something I like, or should I just use the same one again? I'll just use the same one again. You can pick one of these other songs, though, if you want, because it's your project. All right, so we have our transition music. The way, let's look at that. Yeah, so this, right now, is just starting loud. And it says in the thing, fades up. So we want to set this to fade in instead of just starting loud. There are a couple of different ways to do it, right? One of them you can do in here, right? You can make adjustments in the cue. But what we're going to do is just use the fade cue to fade this music in, okay? So what we'll do to do that is we'll start it at -infinity, right? We pull it all the way down. And then we grab our fade cue. You'll notice because I had this cue highlighted, when I hit the fade cue button, it created a fade cue that targets the cue that it was highlighting, right? So that is a quicker way than the thing I've been doing, which is like, I'm going to make a fade cue and then I'm going to target something to it, right? If I know what my target will be and I already have that highlighted, then I hit that fade button, it's going to come right in, okay? So that is our fade cue. And now we need to tell it to do something, and I'm going to have it bring up this music. Yeah, that should be good. So now it's bringing it up, to a little bit, not quite all the way to 0, which would be kind of loud, but to somewhere in here. Okay. So that's step 1, is to fade in the music, right? The next thing that we want to have happen is going to be another fade, and we want that fade to fade out the rain. So if I highlight on that rain, I create this fade cue, I can bring it into this folder, okay? And I can have this fade and stop that rain, okay? Because that was the next thing that's happening. I'm going to come over and look at my timeline and make sure that my transition music has come up all the way before I start the fade down on the rain, because the idea is that the transition music is kind of covering this rain. All right, so we're going to change this and have it come after the music fades up. So now we're fading and stopping rain. Great. And then our next step in this little game is what? Replacing the rain with the morning sounds. Cool. So let's get the morning sounds. Where are you, morning sounds? There you are. Bring that in. So that will also have a fade up. So I'm going to take it all the way down to 0. Give it a fade. We're going to set that fade up. I don't know how loud they're going to be. We're going to go like that, -6. That's the level on it. Let's go back into our timeline. So we want morning sounds to fade up after all of the rain has gone away. So I'm going to bring this over here, and I'm going to bring its fade over with it. So it'll start, and the fade up will start at the same time, and that's now lining up, snapping to after that rain fades out. We actually probably could crossfade a little bit. So maybe we'll start the morning sounds as the rain is fading out, so that it doesn't take quite as long to establish them. Okay. So, and you'll notice over here, it's setting up my pre-weights for me. It's setting all of my overlaps the way that I want. Okay. All right. So fading up the morning sounds, and then, okay. So then in the next cue, we'll fade out that transition music. Great. Got it. Cool. Okay. So here's all of this. Let's see if this works. I need to start this rain because the rain is happening. And then I'm going to fade it down. Let's let it start. And then I'm going to fade it down, right? So I'm kind of going back and picking the cues that are going to reset everything up to where I was. So it should be, there it gets quiet. Great. All right, so now this is what is happening during the scene. And then we're going to start this transition, and let's see what goes. So there's the music. Rain is going away, right? Morning sounds are there, but I sure can't hear them. Yeah, they're there, but I really can't hear them under that other music. That's okay. Let's go ahead and set our next cue, which is going to fade out the music. So I'm going to start another folder. I'm going to find this music cue, hit that with a fade, put that in this next folder, stop the target, have it fade all the way out. Okay. Yeah, there's birds, but they're real quiet. I think we need to boost up our morning sounds. So I'll push these up a little bit more to make sure we can hear them. Chirp, 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 chirp. Okay, great. So this is into scene 2. Great. Okay, and we're going to call that 6. Okay, so we did that. What's next? Tea kettle from off stage. Oh yeah, someone's going to start making some tea. So someone is making tea off stage. Good for them. Let's go find that tea kettle sound. Bring that in. I think I put it in the wrong folder, but that's because there's too much going on. All right, so tea kettle sound is in now. Call that 7. Let's see what tea kettle sound sounds like. Interesting. Okay, so this is a little bit problem, right? Because it kind of starts and stops by itself. But what we actually want, I just hit escape to dump out of it, is we actually want a tea kettle that keeps tea kettling until someone takes it off the stove, right? So what I'm going to do is, and I'm looking at my waveform here in the time and loops tab, I'm going to adjust the beginning to the beginning, and I'm going to adjust the end to like just before the end here, and then I'm going to ask it to do a horrible thing, which is infinite loop a tea kettle. And that's this button right down here. So now tea kettle will keep playing on a loop forever until someone makes it stop, right? So it's going to keep doing this forever, right? I do think it should still fade in. I don't think it should start as loud as it just did. So I am going to set this into a group. I'm going to make some little adjustments here, right? I'm going to move the number out here. Call it a tea kettle. And then I'm going to add a fade to it, right? So I want it to fade up, so it doesn't just start up, and then it should still continue on forever, right? That didn't work because I didn't start it at quiet. Start quiet, fade up. Try again. Yeah, I think it could take a little longer to fade in, right? So I'm going to make that fade in 6 seconds instead of 3. And like, listen now. See, there's a little bit of a messy thing happening in that loop. I betcha if we adjust the beginning just a touch, we're not going to hear that as much. Pretty good, right? See how I can kind of tweak? There's still a little bit of something. When you're an audio editor, you'll fix it and it'll be better, right? You can actually kind of get it so that that's pretty good. Okay, great. So now I have a tea kettle that's going to keep going forever until we get to the stop cue, right? And stop cue is up here, right? And if I just hit that stop cue, again, it needs a target. So I need to drag this over to that target button to stop the tea kettle loop. But luckily, when you stop a tea kettle, it will quit whistling almost immediately. So I can just use a stop cue and cut that off, right? So now if I hit the space bar, it just stops, right? So someone picked up the tea kettle and it just stops. If that feels too abrupt to you, you can use a little baby fade instead, right? You can use a like 0.25 second fade if it feels like the stop is too quick to take out that tea kettle. If you feel like there's a little bit of residual steam as you lift it off the stove. I don't know your life. I don't know how your kettle works. Oh, good. We're here at the end. So we need our intermission music, and then our morning sounds are going to fade out. Perfect. So let's go get our group cue, and let's set up our intermission music. Call that number 9. Name it intermission, right? We're going to go, once again, drag and drop our songs. I have 2 other random songs that I can bring in and put them into my intermission folder. So there they are. And then I'm going to do that thing I did before where I changed the mode to playlist. So now it's set it up to do the playlist thing that we wanted it to do. And then the last thing that I'll have happen, I can turn it on to loop. It can loop. Playlist mode. You can loop until the end of intermission. And then when intermission ends, our last cue on our cue sheet is to fade out that intermission music. So again, if I highlight a group and I hit fade, it'll fade it. I can tell it to fade and stop that intermission music and call that number 10. So that is now our complete pretend play practice project cue list. Amazing. You can let me know if you have any questions. Cool. See you soon. Bye.